Ich kann Sie gut
Frau Wörner,
hören.
genau.
Ja.
Hallöchen. Später los.
Das ist gut. Mhm.
Genau.
Wir stehen nicht in irgendeinem Abseitstrack und kommen nicht mehr zum Zug. Ne?
Ja, genau. Nee, genau. Also geht ein paar Minuten später los und dann sehen Sie da nachher Bild und Ton aus Brasilien.
Ja, genau.
Sam kommt rein, okay.
Sérgio ist da.
Ist er drin?
Sérgio ist vor Ort, ne?
Genau, Sérgio ist vor Ort.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Seven. This is Berlin speaking. We would like to do a quick audio and video test with you. So maybe if you could turn on your video and audio.
Okay, here I am. Yes, I think now it's
perfect.
working. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Looks good. Perfect.
Okay, and you can hear me, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Then. Yes.
Okay, I can hear you fine. Okay, perfect. So the event is going to start right now. I'm hearing it. So the trailer is going to start and you're going to see video and audio from Belém.
Great.
Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Böll. Mauricio. To the German Climate Pavilion at COP30.
This slide on pathway towards convergence, recommendations from the Brazilian-German Track-1.5-Dialogue. This is an event and partly if I think channel 3 is 4. You have to switch the channels and then press OK to have the right channel. This is a side event, an event where we present the results for the German dialogue. My name is steering dialogue, and we will today co-chair this. Then we'll have a high-level session with Jochen Flasbarth and to explain us the political dimension, and then we'll have experts from the recommendations. So without further ado, we can Xavier, Sérgio, Xavier. Please go.
Dizendo que é grande Brazilian teams. I would like to thank for the opportunity we had together with Germany to in this very important work to integrate the visions from Germany and from Brazil to present creative and innovative solutions. I would like to start thanking Dirk Messner. Dirk Messner is going to talk after me. We had a very good organization together. I would like to acknowledge Secretary Jochen Flasbarth, the ambassador, and the whole team, Esther Werner, Jan Stefan. They helped us a lot in this process. I know I don't have a lot of time, and I would like to focus on very practical topics. So we had a huge challenge to summarize the proposals. We are going to hear Imme, Rosana, Linda. They are going to explain everything. But the challenge now is to connect these proposals, these recommendations on our real life. And that's what we are going to try to do, to integrate all these proposals in our economic change. The first is the green steel. The green steel has a huge impact for emissions, and also the chain we are going to have we are going to bring the political recommendations. We are really quite far away from the territories, and all the chains are very far away, and we would like to bring the whole chain, the economy, everything to the territories and create methodologies. So I don't have a lot of time. I would like to leave the message. We are very happy. The Brazilian societies took part. The civil society was part of this decision, and the Brazilian society is ready, is mobilized to implement this partnership with Germany. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xavier, for these introductory remarks. I see that some people have trouble with the translation. The things work, they do work, but you need to put the right channel on. So channel 4 is English, and then press OK. And after you've pressed OK, it's the right channel. So that's maybe the trick to help you to get there. All right, thank you. The other co-chair of this dialogue was Dirk Messner. He's the president of the German Federal Environment Agency, and he is with us online, and I hope the technology works. So over to you, Dirk.
Good to see you, Niklas, and good morning to Belém. Good afternoon to colleagues in Germany and in Europe, and good day to all the other participants from maybe other parts of the world. Distinguished excellencies, members of parliament, dear colleagues and friends, it's an honor for me to welcome you to our Track 1.5 Dialogue site event, and it's an honor to speak after Sérgio. Sérgio, very good to see you. I would like to be with you in Brazil, but it is unfortunately impossible. So some brief remarks from my side, building on what Sérgio already said. I mean, the situation in which we are is easy and clear to describe. It is about daunting challenges. We are in a moment of urgency, of real urgency, and we need to invest in hope, in trust, in cooperation, in joint solutions, in transformative alliances. And our Track 1.5 Dialogue is exactly about that. It's about an alliance of hope, of trust, of cooperation, of joint solutions, and transformative alliances to move forward. And if we look into the current situation, we all have the same vocabulary to describe where we are. It is about the planetary crisis, it is about tipping points, it is about planetary boundaries and time pressure to find good solutions. And unfortunately, these planetary challenges, which we are talking about for a long period of time already, are taking place now in a very challenging political context, which we cannot ignore. It is about geopolitical tensions across the globe. It is about instability in many countries. It's about wars and security issues across continents. It's about shrinking investment in multilateral infrastructures. It's about egoism instead of reciprocity. And I mean, against this background, the only solution to move forward is obviously what I already said. It's about hope, trust, cooperation, joint solutions, and future orientations. This is what the Track 1.5 stands for. It's precisely under these difficult challenges that the international community must reaffirm its commitment to science-based solution finding and policymaking, to cooperative solutions, and to fair partnerships. And we need to build on what we already have been achieving during the last decades since 1992, the Earth Summit in Brazil, several decades ago already. We have achieved a lot, but we have challenging issues and constellations in front of us. In this spirit, the German-Brazilian Track 1.5 Dialogue on ambitious climate policies was established as a platform for constructive exchange between our two nations. And we created together, Sérgio, and I'm very happy that we have been having the chance to cooperate in this regard. We created a trusted space for innovative thinking and for fresh ideas on bold climate activities. In a second, in a moment, we will listen to the panelists and we will listen to the solutions which we have been developing all together. And I think that we have been developing interesting stuff here. I mean, our overall message to the conference in Brazil is very clear, and it is coinciding with the thinking of the COP30 presidency, I think. The overall message is that dialogue, joint efforts, and trust are the key drivers to find solutions out of the planetary crisis. And disengagement, confrontation, and egoism, these are the multipliers of crises in which we are already currently. Therefore, so important to have such ambitious coalitions as our 1.5 track dialogue. My last point is very simple also. We are not naive as 1.5 track alliance because finding solutions is often not so easy. Sérgio, we therefore decided that we are not going only to look at the consensus areas and the convergences, which are easy to leverage. We are also looking at discussing differences, diverging interests, and diverging perspectives as a valuable part and often a precondition of building trust, joint learning, and innovation. And I think we made a lot of progress, and we will listen to our panelists in a second. So against this background, thank you very much to the experts and congratulations for their excellent work. Thank you very much to Sérgio for your trust and your immense energy. And I wish all of us an exciting side event and, of course, overall, a successful COP30. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dirk, for these introductory remarks. And the whole idea of this dialogue is that it's a technical dialogue, but the recommendations should be put to the political level. And that's why we have the political level here. So first speaker on the high level, political level is Jochen Flasbarth, who is the state secretary at the German Environment Ministry. Jochen, you have the floor.
Thanks, Niklas, Mauricio, Dirk, Sérgio. Very nice to have you all here. Very exciting event for us. And one part, Mauricio, of the Mutirao, how we understand it, to do things together. And I think it's also an important part in how we are designing politics internationally and nationally. And I was privileged, Dirk, to have your position as federal as president of the Federal Environment Agency. So I know a little bit about the policy science interface, and it is needed. Yesterday, we had here at the wonderful Brazilian Pavilion a very important side event on the Declaration on Disinformation. And maybe this is one of the biggest risks for the whole transformation, because we know transformation can provide huge opportunities. And yesterday we had again a wonderful event together with Brazil, presenting the flagship report, Ingrid, on skills, laying out that 375 million jobs will be created through the transformation in the next decade. This is a winner topic. This is a winner track. But of course, at the same time, societies are puzzled in Brazil, in Germany, elsewhere, because the current and the past basis of the economy is changing, and changes sometimes concern people. They are worried about that. And if we do have misinformation in the room in our societies, then discussions will be difficult and solutions will be difficult. And therefore, it is so important to have the science providing policy advice to us. And obviously, governments will not always follow the advice, the recommendations. Sometimes we have to look at the overall picture. Sometimes we don't have the majorities in our governments or in our parliament and so forth. But the basis has to be clear. And therefore, I think what Brazil and Germany did in the previous government, my predecessor, Jennifer Morgan, was very much behind it, and I appreciate terms for the dialogue. This would expire, I think, by the end of the year. We both were of the view that this should continue. We value the work you are doing, and we are listening to the science and not to fake. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you very much, Jochen, for your introductory remarks. And the floor is now to you, Mauricio Carvalho-Lurio, you are ambassador at the Brazilian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to tell us the Brazilian side of the story. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Jochen, Flasbarth, Sérgio Xavier, and our Dr. Dirk Messner, and I think that he's online here. Thank you very much for the invitation to this important event on the Track 1.5 dialogue between Brazil and Germany. It is a pleasure to join you today for this timely and meaningful exchange. At the outset, let me emphasize that Brazil and Germany enjoy a dense and multifaceted partnership in the area of climate change. Our collaboration spans multiple levels, from scientific research and development cooperation to political dialogue. One of the most remarkable aspects of our partnership is our cooperation in climate science. The Amazon Tall Tower Observatory, ATTO, jointly operated by scientists from both countries, stands as a symbol of our shared commitment to advancing the understanding of the Earth's systems. It demonstrates how science can serve diplomacy and how collaboration can translate into knowledge, capacity, and action in response to climate change. Our development cooperation is equally robust, particularly through Brazil's participation in Germany's International Climate Initiative, IKI. This initiative supports projects in Brazil that promote forest conservation, renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and resilience. It reflects a shared vision for integrating climate protection, biodiversity, and just transition, turning ideas into tangible results on the ground. With Germany's endorsement of the Tropical Forest Forever Facility launch declaration and its commitment to contribute a substantial amount, I am confident that our cooperation is entering a new and promising phase. And speaking about political push and momentum, President Lula had a very good meeting with Chancellor Merz last Friday. I had the pleasure to be there. They had before had just a brief meeting in Kananaskis in the G7 meeting, so it was the first long meeting between the two leaders, and it was a fantastic one. And the political push in terms of cooperation in many areas, including climate, was reaffirmed. We are going to see also some state visits very soon, right? And we are happy that at the political level, the message is being conveyed that we have a lot to do together, Brazil and Germany, in all those areas, but particularly in the question of fighting climate change. On the political front, our relationship has reached a new level of depth through the strategic high-level dialogue on climate action and ambition, formalized in December 2023. This mechanism provides a key platform for aligning priorities and strengthening collaboration within the multilateral climate regime, reinforcing our joint role as bridge builders in the global effort toward greater climate ambition. We are also very glad to witness the establishment and operationalization of the Track 1.5 Dialogue, co-led by the Brazilian Forum on Climate Change, FBMC, and the German Environmental Agency, UBA. This initiative offers a valuable space for scientists, civil society, and governments representatives from both countries to engage in open exchange, foster mutual learning, and explore joint solutions to the challenge of climate change. We especially welcome the dialogue's initial focus on sustainable value chains, international finance, and of course, one of the main objectives of the Brazilian presidency very recently in G20 was to integrate climate and finance. It was a very important task, and we had a very good support from the German colleagues in G20 too. And the other issues like digital solutions and artificial intelligence and international energy governance. These are key areas where our cooperation can make a tangible difference, combining innovation, equity, and sustainability to drive meaningful change. We look forward to examining in greater detail the report prepared by the Track-1.5-Dialogue, its key findings and recommendations, which will undoubtedly enrich our shared work under the strategic dialogue and guide future collaboration within the broader framework of the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. Let me conclude by reaffirming Brazil's deep appreciation for this partnership, one rooted in trust, shared values, and a common vision for a resilient, low-carbon, and inclusive future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Really great to hear that support for the results of this dialogue. And Ambassador and State Secretary, we know you both have very busy schedules, so if you need to leave to other commitments, that's totally okay. We come to the next part of this, and now we really come to the content of it, and that's why I would like to ask all the experts here on the stage right now. That's Regine Schönenberg, Director from the Heinrich Böll Foundation in Brazil, Linda Murasawa, Managing Director of Fractal, Imme Scholz, Member of Board of the Heinrich Böll Foundation, Ludovino Lopes, the Lawyer Foundation, Ludovino Lopes, Sociedade de Advogados, Rosana dos Santos, Executive Director of E+, and we have Sven Seven with us online. I think we will all match here and can sit, come over here, and then we'll dive right into the presentations. All right, and we'll start with Regine Schönberg. We have 4 different tracks. The first one is on sustainable value chains towards implementable and financeable NDCs. So, Regine, you have the floor.
Yes, I'm happy to be here. Bon dia, hello everybody. Do you want me to present the group members? Yeah, so we had a very interesting group composition. Very interesting group composition. So we had Patrick Abel, a professor from Innsbruck University, who was more working on steel. Sueli Araujo, urban planner and lawyer. Jan Börner, professor on economics and sustainable land use and bioeconomy, who lived for a long time in the Amazon and knows very well what he was telling us. Osvaldo dos Santos Lucon, da Fundação Florestal Instituto Mauá de Tecnologia. Da ist das, habe ich nicht gesehen. Não vi, desculpe. Gustavo Magalhães de Oliveira, senior researcher of the University of Bonn, and me from the Heinrich Böll Foundation. So it was an interesting group, and we came together with the intention of discussion and mutual learning. So I think the mutual learning aspect was very important. And from the very beginning, the distance, what Xavier referred to, this distance between policy and implementation, more you discuss, more visible it becomes. So this was very interesting. We identified some barriers on both sides. So this was one of the important things of the dialogue, that we were always looking how things are on both sides, very important for communication. So on the German side, the perception of the high transformation costs and bureaucratic barriers was a discussion point. And on the Brazilian side, the problem with law enforcement, especially if we think about the Amazon. So obviously, if you look to the trade indicators, we have a lot interchange on the economic side. So to understand each other and align each other is extremely important. Surprisingly, our land use sector in Germany as well has a lot of CO2 per capita, and it's not different because we always accuse the Brazilian side. So when you look deeply into it, you see the German side is not a lot better. So when we started to discuss value chains, it became obvious how complicated and how differentiated the whole problem is. So I had introduced the local example of the Para nut. So now you know where it comes from. We are here in Pará, and it's a nut which is extremely important to keep the forest alive, because whole forest communities live off this nut. And surprisingly, Germany holds 14% of the Brazil nut market. It's the second biggest exporter of Brazil nuts. And so the question is, why could this happen and how could this be changed? I won't go into it in detail. It has a lot to do with different access to markets, different capabilities to establish and comply with taxonomies, and to have trade advantages which come from a long period ago, and they would have to be renegotiated. To understand it better, Heinrich Böll Foundation has prepared this publication, How Can Value Chains Between Brazil and Germany Be Transformed Sustainably? And it's a practical example. You can find it at the counter there. So now to the recommendations. We have 5 recommendations. So since it is a lot, I will concentrate on 3. The innovative links of ETS, to establish a link between the revenues of CBAM, of the carbon border adjustment mechanism, and Brazil. So we thought it would be interesting to establish a link with the between the Just Transformation Fund and the mechanisms of implementation of the Amazon Fund, where we have already 15 years of interesting experiences with participation of stakeholder groups. The Green Steel Innovation Hubs, I will leave to the Working Group 4, because there's a lot more expertise and discussion. Then I would like to mention Article 30 of the EUDR, where I have did some a lot of communication with other people as well out of our dialogue, and everybody says communication is the most important thing, what we are missing to align ourselves with this Article 30 of the EUDR. The launch of a structured knowledge exchange program would be extremely important. This is what we identified, because there are so many activities in research and practice which are compatible and could be put into communication during this structural knowledge exchange program. So the expertise, the Brazilian expertise in ecosystem conservation and German research institutes would be put together, and we would build a knowledge exchange program. The the common market between the European Union and the Mercosur, a market which could guarantee just transition for all involved, would be very interesting for us. So we stressed this and discussed a lot about what would be necessary that everybody comes along in this common market. Overall, it was a very fruitful discussion, and I think that we learned from each other, that we have to listen and we have to see how things are really being together in a better way. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Regine. And handing over directly to the next topic, which is climate finance to the global south, and Linda Murasawa, and then Imme Scholz will lead you through that. Linda.
Em primeiro lugar, eu quero agradecer muito a parceria, né, do grupo alemão, porque realmente essas discussões bilaterais são
extremely important. I would also like to thank the contribution of all this expert, Astrid, Messner, team leader from Sustainable Finance, Innovation, and so on from UBA, and myself, and also Gustavo Pinheiro, who unfortunately is not here. He is senior associate from here, Oswaldo Lucon, who helps us a lot, always there, a lot of knowledge and expertise from Fundação Florestal, and Imme, who is here, Imme Scholz, co-president from the Heinrich Böll Stiftung. Sorry for the pronunciation, and Silke Stremthal, former chairwoman, Green Sustainable Finance Advisory Committee. This group dedicated to international finance, we discussed how to attract finance, but also how we can cooperate, thinking about development of opportunities, not just for us, but also recommendations for the countries of the global south. Brazil, thinking about what we learned from Germany. We have many things in common. Our sustainable taxonomy, for example. Recently, this was approved. Germany and Europe, they have their sustainable taxonomy, and we understand that there is a need. Instead of creating taxonomies all over the world separately, we should have a basic alignment. We should have a baseline among all the countries so that we have a acknowledgement, a recognition of the things we are really looking for, what we want to foster in terms of sustainability. And this is linked to other aspects when we talk about the need of finance. Germany is one of the main investors. Thinking of Brazil, we all know this, and thank you. We really thank the Amazon Fund, so many resources. We also thank all the other resources that come from Germany to Brazil, and we would like to work more together also with private finance so that private capital can bring about more investment so we reach the sustainable development goals, the SDGs, and Imme will talk a little bit more about all the mechanisms we are talking about, debt relief, monetary issues. She will go into this topic.
And of course, we need some fiscal stability, and we would like to talk a lot about coherence. We need about the political frameworks, and it's very important to establish financial terms and what would this platform mean that we want to develop about the frameworks, and then we can work together. Of course, instruments need to be developed between the countries, and one of them was the TFFF, Tropical Forest Fund Forever, and this kind of mechanisms can be created not only to depend for always on these mechanisms, but to establish other mechanisms that can advance more. I would like to state that we learned a lot. The support of the German group was very important to make some progress. Financial topics need to be detailed, and we hope to make some progress to create mechanisms to de-risk not only for Brazil, but all the companies, all the other countries that need this help. I would like to give the floor to my friend here, Imme. Thank you.
Para mim foi grande prazer também contribuir a esse grupo, mas vou mudar agora para o inglês. Point about debt relief, debt for climate and debt for nature swaps. That's part of a discussion we had on the need to organize support and concrete steps for debt relief. And I would like to quote the roadmap document from Baku to Belém, which has been published in the first week of November, where the authors highlight the following for achieving the new collective quantified goal on climate finance. And the first point they make is the need for public and grant-based resources and highly concessional finance in the context of increasing costs for adaptation and innovative and non-debt. And here I would highlight non-debt, creating instruments and measures to create fiscal space. So this should be the overarching game of a goal of what we need to do. So everything needs to be done to reduce the debt burden. And just to remind you, what are we talking about here? After the pandemic, we have seen very, very high increases of public debt due to the lack of solidarity from the rich countries with the poorer countries in this very difficult situation. The debt has risen to $31 trillion US. And public debt service is a very, very large part of public budgets. So we are seeing more and more people, so in fact 3.4 billion people are living in countries that spend more on interests than on health or education. And another important thing is that the portion of external public debt owed to private creditors is now accounting for 60% of developing countries' total external public debt. So this means that everything governments want to do need to include the private debtors, which is a difficulty. And what this all means is that these very high rates of debt and debt service critically restrain the country's ability to invest in climate action, to invest in adaptation, in disaster preparedness, in relief and recovery, and to allow for a just transition towards a decarbonized economy. Now, what to do? Our recommendations say German-Brazilian governments could jointly lead the development of mechanisms for debt for climate and debt for nature swaps, for especially focusing on highly vulnerable Amazon and African countries, and using technical supports from development banks such as KfW and BNDES, because debt relief is essential. So the finance ministers should jointly support or develop initiatives to reform the IMF debt sustainability assessments to reflect investment needs and climate risks. So climate risks should inform the thinking and acting on debt sustainability. They should also jointly ensure that the G20 common debt framework compels all creditors, and for me that would include China, to participate in providing sufficient relief for climate and development financing, and to offer targeted support such as credit enhancement and temporary debt service suspension to countries facing liquidity challenges. So that includes middle-income countries. They have liquidity crisis and not so much debt sustainability issues. And the second area where we would like to make recommendations is the three-pillar approach, which should be inspired by past debt relief efforts to address countries with fiscal constraints. So to use debt for climate swaps to forgive debt. That is very important, to forgive debt for investments and to give that in exchange for investments in implementing NDCs and SDGs. So to have the broader context for climate and just transition. To make sure that private and commercial creditors also engage and provide fair relief. To allow for debt payment standstill. To create a guarantee facility which would enable swapping old debt for new bonds. So that is then new indebtedness, new debt, but for countries who have the economic strength and fiscal strength to do so. And also to engage in legislation to encourage private creditors to participate in early and speedy resolutions for credit, for debt. And let me just add a final point on the TFFF. Because we say we want to strengthen the governance, and here I would like to mention the experience made in the 15 years of collaboration in the Amazon Fund. And we particularly recommend to strengthen governance through participation of civil society representatives, both from contributing and benefiting countries. And we see Brazil, Germany, Norway, and Colombia as very good candidates for that. And this would not only ensure greater credibility and transparency and accountability, but it would also contribute to the quality and predictability in fund allocation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imme. And that brings us to the next topic, the third one, which is digitalization and artificial intelligence. And I hand over to Ludovino to guide us through it.
Thank you. Thank you. É prazer estar com vocês aqui. Queria agradecer.
I'm very happy to be here. I would like to thank the initiatives between Germany and Brazil. This is fundamental to find the balance point and to build together. These topics are so important and so difficult to treat, like the one we are going to talk about now, the artificial intelligence. I'm going to change into English, and this can so people outside Brazil have it easier.
Has worked in a very strange connection, very close connection between the Brazilian elements and the German elements and the experts. I want to thank to Marcel Dorsch, the focal point for Codes Initiative. I want to thank to Ruth Gonçalves-Brot, the policy officer AA Lab of UBA. Myself, and especially to Robert Wagner, the department lead of AA Lab of UBA. So we have worked together to bring you the importance and the relevance of artificial intelligence in the context of climate governance and climate change. It's the climate context. AI can really enable predictive modeling, real-time diagnostics, and large-scale movement monitoring or legal tech applications. And as you can see, we are not talking only about data. We are talking about instruments of intelligence that can aggregate information and bring important fundamental insights to allow the public decision-making. And this is very critical, also in the sense that it's not only about the use of the instrument. It's fantastic, marvelous, can bring us a lot of good things, but we need to bring it to the reality, to the quality of the data, to the accuracy of the data, to the integrity of the data, and only after that we should use AI. It's not about bring all the universe to AI. We should be very careful about that. Why? Because we have consequences on the use of AI also that we need to measure, that we need to take care. So AI and digital tools are not a universal solution, and they consume massive amounts of energy. And so if we are intelligent in the process of identifying what the quality of the data and what data we really need, will allow us to bring more efficient tools and not to treat everything in the space. So, coming that to our recommendations, the first one, I think it's a very critical one. When we try to bring this to practical solutions, to solutions that can match to the challenges of the United Nations Framework Convention, of our both countries aligned in the process, and also to the reality of Brazil and Germany on that process. So the first thing is strengthen global environmental data governance, support the finalization of the UNEP Global Environmental Data Strategy, and significantly increase finance for its implementation over the next 10 years. What does that mean? So we need to complete and operationalize UNEP's Global Environmental Data Strategy and ensure a decade or more, if possible, of predictable, scaled financing, because those things, they will need that. Without that, we cannot progress in the process. Reliable, interoperable environmental data is foundational for Article 6, for national inventories, for biodiversity finance, and for shaping credible transition pathways. How are we going to be able to implement markets? How are we going to implement Article 6 without reliable data? How are we going to be able to implement the challenge that we have to build the structure of biodiversity finance and national inventories? So, and for shaping this, without a strong data governance, there is no trust, there is no comparability, and no accountability in global climate action. So we need to ensure that. So the key message is investing in global environmental data is the single most impactful multiplier for climate transparency and global mitigation progress. The second is feature the matter of sustainable AI life cycles in the official United Nations Framework Convention and COP process. What does that mean? We must ensure that sustainable AI life cycles become a recognized theme within official United Nations Framework Convention and COP processes, not as a technical afterthought, but as a new governance frontier. Those mean that AI is accelerating climate modeling, biodiversity mapping, early warning systems, and MRV. But AI systems have energy, water, ethical and transparency impacts that must be governed to avoid creating a new source of inequity. And this is very critical. AI consumes the most powerful amount of energy. The challenge is huge. Brazil probably will be a very strategical player in this space, but we need to be aware of the sustainability of those models. We need to choose the data, we need to choose the instruments, and we need to choose the power sources that are going to enable AI in that new world. So the key message here is sustainable AI governance must evolve alongside climate governance, ensuring that digital acceleration supports rather than undermines the Paris goals and the challenge that we have today. The third, invest more in existing and new bilateral and triangular cooperation projects, both in Brazil and other biodiversity hotspots around the globe. Example, around UNDP Nature ID approach. We need to scale up bilateral and triangular cooperation in biodiversity hotspots, starting with Brazil and extending globally. Initiatives such as UNDP Nature ID demonstrate that nature data, community engagement in digital platforms can unlock new finance for conservation. Expanding these partnerships is critical for implementing nature-positive developments at scale. What is the key message here for us? Biodiversity governance must be supported by long-term diplomatic, financial, and technological cooperation, not short project cycles. We need to shout for the long term. We need to shout for the ability to go here on the long term. The fourth and last message, I will be short and precise. In the spirit of the United Nations Global Digital Compact, implement to be announced, built up of green digital action centers, and support the implementation of a special envoy for climate and digital. And this is very interesting. Why we should not have a special envoy for climate and digital? It's very critical, very crossroads issue, very multilateral on all the sense. So, in the spirit of the United Nations Global Digital Compact, we should accelerate the creation of green digital action centers, regional hubs that could integrate climate data, digital innovation, and capacity building. Establishing a special envoy for climate and digital would anchor this agenda globally and help countries translate digital tools into real mitigation, adaptation, and transparency outcomes. What is the key message? The climate digital nexus must become an institutional priority with a dedicated governance structure and global leadership. So those are the 4 messages. Thank you all for the work and the dedication, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ludovino. And now we come to the last of the 4, which is on energy policy, and Rosana and Sven will do this. I think first over to you, Rosana.
Yeah, good. Is it on? On. It is on. Eu vou falar algumas palavras em português, devagar.
And then I will swap to English so that we have real good understanding. First, the participation in this task force was a big lesson, a life lesson, so to say, because we
sobre o que colocar e o que não colocar na agenda. As duas coisas que foram para a agenda, eu concordo completamente. Antes de passar, eu quero agradecer demais todo mundo que estava no task force.
So everybody on the task force needed a lot of patience, a lot of hearing among us to reach a result that makes sense for everybody.
I'll switch to English so that I think it's better for everybody. The contributing experts in this task force, we were a number of them. Fabian from Agora, Karina from Agora, Heinrich from the Research Institute for Sustainability, Emilio from University of Rio de Janeiro, myself, Jan. Jan, did I say your name correctly? Jan Sven, senior expert on renewables energy in UBA, and Fractal, co-director of Europe Agora Energy. So as I see Julia sitting here, she is from Agora. I really thank you very, very much for everything that Agora did for this think tank in terms of technical expertise and really facilitated my work a lot. Thank you. So going forward, just setting the scenario here, the key priorities, renewable hydrogen and power-to-X technologies. Here it comes already the first discussion that we had, and we got to a common sense between the 2 delegations, the use of renewable hydrogen instead of green hydrogen here. Green means only from wind and solar. Renewable hydrogen is broader, and Brazil uses the taxonomy using renewable hydrogen. Building on existing frameworks like the German-Brazilian Energy Partnership and the Partnership for Socially Just and Ecological Transformation, and linking bilateral efforts with broader national, plurinational, and multilateral initiatives like Climate Club, G20, COP, Brazil's new industry program. And all this can amplify the global climate leadership between the two countries. So we have a lot of common grounds among the two countries. We ourselves, on my institution, E+, we carried out an analysis between Brazil and Germany. How could we cooperate between the two countries in terms of industry? Of course, there are points of discussion, but one thing that is very, very clear is that Brazil is rich in resources and has an industrial basis that is considerably large, but the German industry is more efficient, is more technological based, and we can exchange a lot from that. So going forward here, so some recommendations: forge a strategic trade and investment partnership aimed, I'm going to read and then explain, aimed at promoting renewable electrolytic hydrogen production. Then this is the second point that we did not agree, but I just caved up just for us to get to a conclusion. The electrolytic word there, this is not a common sense. Electrolytic is something that we brought to this report because this is a common sense between the countries, but we can get to renewable hydrogen also by the reform of biomethane. So it's also renewable, but Germany doesn't recognize this pathway. That's okay. Let's go with electrolytic here. And hydrogen derivatives, including green, intermediate, and final industrial products, such as green iron and steel and fertilizers, to move into this direction. Create a global market for green fertilizers. I don't know if you guys know, but Brazil imports like more than 90% of the nitrogen-based fertilizers from Russia and Belarus, and they are fossil-based fertilizers. So if we can cooperate there so that we can have and replace partially this supply of fertilizers by green fertilizer using renewable hydrogen, this is good for Brazil, and also probably a cooperation with Germany chemical industry can help us get there. So also create a forge a strategic partnership between Brazil and Germany for trade and investment in green iron and steel. This comes from the fact that Brazil is the second largest iron ore exporter and only the 9th steel exporter. And why is that? It's because this is how the supply chain is organized around the world. Brazil is really rich in iron ore, and better than that, is rich in very, very good quality iron ore. So it makes sense for us to go up the ladder of this supply chain, go up the ladder and add value closer to where the resources are. And this connects to something that you said about the debt. Not that Brazil is in debt, but talking about the Global South, it doesn't really help for us to equate the debt of Global South countries if we are to make them be in debt again by doing the same. So we have to go in another development pathway. This is a pathway that can foster a lot, and I love this conclusion from our task force. Create a binational working group on technological pathways and related definitions on investment criteria. This comes from the fact, what you mentioned, Lucia, you mentioned about taxonomy. This is us doing like a common taxonomy and a common language between the countries just to understand what is green and what is not green. Because unless we have a common language, we will never have a trade between the countries. So trade is based on data, trade is based on common understanding. And last but not least, create a binational working group on bio-based pathways. This one, I thank Jan a lot for accepting this one, because we don't have a common understanding between our countries what is sustainable in terms of bio-based. And I'm not saying that I know everything, that Germany knows everything. This is where this proposal comes from, is for us to sit together and have a common language and a common understanding on what is sustainable in terms of bio-based. I think only us blocking, on one side, blocking the bio-based solution, and us trying to push the bio-based solution without understanding why the other side doesn't understand it, it doesn't help the case. So this working group, I think it's a way forward, including for the fourfolds that is being discussed here in this COP. Perhaps if we have this working group in a better day, we can better understand what is the fourfolds is. So I pass the word to Jan, because we were to share the panel and I spoke a lot. Jan, sorry about that. Go. Can you hear us?
Yeah, thank you, Rosana. You took my let's say, the open discussions, pointed them out, pointed the fields of disagreement. There is not much to say for me than that we arrived at certain points. We arrived at a common understanding on others, and we arrived at certain points where further work would be needed to have clearer recommendations in terms of pathways that Germany and Brazil could exchange knowledge on, or have common developments in the two countries. Yes, thank you for providing that. So we have these two groups, and I think in terms of standards that play a role in both of the groups, that have to be where there has to be a common understanding and of the standard themselves, on the pathways included, and the activities the mutual activities that could be built on. Thank you very much. So I cut the long story short, and we will have to, hopefully, these two groups to go on with our discussions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That concludes the presentation of the recommendations. Unfortunately, we are a bit over time already, but I think it would be super nice if we have one or two burning questions, then we can take them. I think afterwards we are still here and we can take questions if you have. But if there's any burning questions from the audience at this moment, then we can take it. Any burning question over here?
Hi, I'm Jochen from E+. You mentioned collaborations in terms of trade and green trade. I'd like to know the Europeans' opinion or insights in the light of the border carbon adjustments, and how this can be a window of opportunity for green trade between these two countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will take a second question over here. Maybe can you pass the microphone to the lady over there? That would be really great. And then a third one, but then we have to stop, unfortunately. So park the question on the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Ask your question.
Hi, Caroline from Thunen Institute, from the German Ministry of Agriculture. So thanks a lot for the great panel. I have just one question regarding the first topic. It's more about, you mentioned about the coherence and the taxonomy, but I also would like to understand a little bit the coherence between policy insights, for example, from Brazil, and also the relation, because you mentioned the UDR, and I would like to understand maybe this correlation with UDR and maybe the effects in Brazil in terms of risks and opportunities. I would like to understand your opinion. Thanks a lot again.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And pass the mic up to the front here, to the last question that we have over here, the lady in green. Yes, thank you. Go ahead with your question.
Bom dia. Eu vou falar em português porque eu não sei falar inglês.
Portuguese. I'm Dailane from Acre State. I represent the community Chico Mendes, and I would like to say, perhaps you could consider technologies from our communities. So the science we have in our communities, this is very important. That's important. We from the Amazon, we really would like to have more help from the Amazon Fund on the basis for long-term projects. SEMEAR is a very good project. So to give basic sanitation to the communities. Sometimes the communities, they drink the water from the rivers, but this program is just for some communities. We have a lot of communities, so the Amazon Fund needs to reach the communities. And also, when you look at the forests, we have people there. You cannot finance only hectares of forest. We need to see how many communities are there and how many communities can be benefited by can benefit from this help.
Three questions. One was from the communities, how the money can really lead there. Yes, I give it to us. Thank you. We had one on the EUDR and we had one on CBAM. So who's interested to follow up with that one? I think you, Regine. Yeah, just speak.
Can you? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Layani, for the questions. So I had mentioned the difficulty to bridge the huge gap of implementation between mechanisms of finance, mechanisms of taxonomy, and the life in the communities. So it's a very good example is the Amazon Fund. From a top-down perspective, the Amazon Fund is the best that we have because it has participatory mechanisms, it takes in account the communities. But if you see it from the point of view of the territories, it's far too big. There's no possibility to administer those recourse sources. So the money from the Amazon Fund goes to intermediate NGOs, to intermediate funds, until it comes down. So this makes that there are kind of loopholes that you have to pass to get the capillarity of finance where you need the finance. It's a big problem and has to be discussed within these new rounds of common communal funds. There's a lot going on this side. The second question about the taxonomies in the economic exchange with the territories, it's very difficult as well. It's something you were referring to as well. It's the compliance that we need to get into an international trade follows a completely different logic than you find in the community. So it would be very interesting to have the scientific approaches of indigenous and ribeirinho and small peasant communities to be on an equal level of exchange with academic taxonomies coming from our side. So this means more or less the kind of dialogue we are doing between Brazil and Germany, we would need inside Brazil, between a Western-driven idea of solving problems with the intelligence from the territories which come up. It's very fruitful to do so. So I hand over the CBAM question to Imme, because I'm not very firm in CBAM.
I think you could, my contribution to that, I was not part, is it working? Yeah? I was not part of that working group, but we have ongoing discussions on between Brazilian partners in my foundation also, and German and European ones, on what could make CBAM acceptable actually from the outside, because it is clear that it is the idea is to protect those companies who produce with less carbon from those who have a better price because they do not invest in technologies to reduce carbon related to production. So one approach then would be to use the revenue from CBAM to put it into a shared fund between Brazil and Germany for allowing adjustment measures and innovation measures in those sectors affected by CBAM, those Brazilian sectors affected by CBAM when exporting to Europe. That's the main idea.
Thank you. And over to Linda for a quick answer, and Rosana as well, and then we need to close, unfortunately. It's on, just speak. It's on, don't change anything.
Pessoal, ok. Pessoal, falar em português primeiro para responder
to my colleague here. So the Amazon Fund topic for Amazon Fund is management by the BNDES. So the criteria are really led by BNDES institution. Of course, there is a governance. We have funding capture. So Germany, Norway, when they put the funding, they also put criteria to for this capital. So we need to work so the communities could also ask BNDES for criteria. because they're not going to be defined alone. They need to be defined with all the funders. First point. But CBAM, as Amy said, we have following situation. From when we do more investment in climate, the trend would be to reduce emissions. The reduction of emissions need to be strategic so we can be competitive internationally. There is no other way. So climate, the topic affects everyone. And our agribusiness is very well. We have low carbon agriculture. We're developing more and more the topic of ecological transition in the industry. We are looking for competitiveness in steel, doing recycling, and we are also looking for reduction. So I do believe Brazil is looking for this situation, and the topic of taxonomy is very important. So Brazil, together with Germany, Europe, can understand exactly what this means and what means low carbon economy in the territories, and also naturally looking for the development and the NDCs. Well, Linda said everything I would state.
Has a lot of measurement mechanism behind, and a lot of how to measure, what is the taxonomy and the ETS. What we are discussing here, and I think it has a lot to do with what she said. I don't know your name, Nayama. Is that this way of certifying what is green and what is not green, what we are asking is not to abandon CBAM. What we are asking is, let's review the way we certify what is green and what is not green, because sometimes the routes, tech routes that are there being certified just block technologies from other regions, block technologies that are from indigenous or even more developed. So I think if we want to speed up our way to net zero, we have to speed up the way we accept and be flexible on what we are going to use to get there. And this is what is behind the mechanism that I think, in my opinion, has to be reviewed. Thank you.
Excellent, and I think this discussion already showed how exciting it is and what more things we can do, and how it is very helpful that we have this discussion and really can move it forward. We really need to close. I really thank Dirk and Sérgio for your leadership in making this happen. I thank the State Secretary and the Ambassador who had to leave for listening to us. I thank all the experts, you that are here on the panel, also those that are not, for really doing this great work. And last but not least, I thank you as the audience for being here. I also thank the team that has been behind the dialogue. They did a lot of work organizing the dialogue and this thing. Thank you very much, and we look forward to continued discussion. Thank you.
Global Multidão, realizing just transitions. Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP30 in Böll.